Good afternoon. My name is Daniel, and today in my video presentation, I will be talking about Hurricane Sandy, and more specifically, its environmental history, its formation, and the environmental consequences that came as a result of the storm. So Hurricane Sandy formed in October 2012 over the Western Caribbean Sea, and it affected coastal communities along the Caribbean, as well as along the U.S. East Coast, including New York and New Jersey. Hurricane Sandy was one of the costliest storms in U.S. history, causing over $70 billion in damages in the U.S. alone, as well as killing over 200 people worldwide. A combination of environmental factors caused the storm to strengthen beyond almost all predictions, which contributed to the high death toll as well as the high damage costs. And as a result of these, one of these environmental factors was the high tide of the moon. So it was a full moon during the storm, which caused the high tide to be 1 foot higher than it would be otherwise, as well as an incoming cold front in the area colliding with the storm caused the storm to strengthen, and as well as it trapped the storm along the coastline. And as a result of these factors strengthening the storm, 8 million people were without power. Hurricane Sandy had many different consequences and after effects, both during the storm and immediately following the storm. One of these was flood insurance. So in New York, the National Flood Insurance Plan was established in 1968, and it was required for any residence that was in a high-risk flood zone and with a federally recognized mortgage. So if you met these mandates, you were required to register for the insurance plan. But the problem with this insurance plan was that a lot of the residences in the area that were at risk of flooding were actually not required to get this. The mandates were not strict enough for them to be required to get this, so a lot of houses were not covered under the plan. So when Hurricane Sandy hit, it basically exposed the lack of effectiveness and the lack of coverage of this program on many of the residences that ended up being affected by the storm. And so this basically sparked an entire overhaul of the system that saw stricter mandates, so more residences had to apply for the program, as well as increased insurance rates in flood-affected areas. So this put many middle and lower class working families at risk of losing their homes simply because they just could not afford the increased insurance rates. And this sort of it caused a lot of policy changes in New York that basically favored the preservation of the value of homes and the value of home insurance over the recovery of helping these people recover from what happened in this terrible event that took so long to recover from. Hurricane Sandy also had effects on mortality rates, and so Hurricane Sandy, these storms don't just come and go. They have lasting effects that last for even months after the storm is already gone. And one of these was mortality rates. And so there was a study done that studied the 1 and 3 month periods directly preceding the storm in New York, and found that all-cause mortality rates had a significant increase. And that this was most prevalent among the elderly and those most directly hit by the storm. And so the specific rates that spiked had significant spikes for respiratory, infectious diseases, and cardiovascular related deaths. And so this is basically consistent with the hurricane causing significant property damage, and this damage basically caused exposure to harmful materials and substances, and the subsequent long-term illnesses and diseases related to these harmful exposures. And so basically this shows that the after effects of storms like these are very complex. They're unpredictable. We don't fully understand them. We don't know what's going to happen at like the after effects of a storm. It's very complex issues, and the way we prepare and the way we plan for these kind of things is going to affect how to what degree they affect us and how long they affect us. Another prolonged after effect or consequence of Hurricane Sandy was a property and utility disruption. And so Hurricane Sandy had lasting impacts on residential infrastructure. Highly affected areas experienced very long disruptions to their vital utilities, such as water and electricity. And they also experienced longer and harder recovery efforts. So it took longer for them to fully recover, get back on their feet, and it was much harder the more they were affected. And so this disproportionately was damaging towards lower education levels who maybe didn't have the resources or didn't have the knowledge to fully prepare for the storm. And once again, this shows that how we understand and how we respond and how we prepare for these complex issues is going to directly affect how to what degree and what level they affect us. Hurricane Sandy had lots of lasting impacts on communities, but it also had lots of lasting impact on ecosystems in the area. And as an extension, these ecosystems have an effect on us. And so the Hudson Raritan Estuary that was located between New York and New Jersey is a commercial fishing hub in the area and also a natural habitat for many fish. It's very important to the ecosystems and the communities in the area. And this ecosystem prior to Hurricane Sandy had been undergoing degradation due to the overexploitation of its natural fish resources, so basically overfishing. And when Sandy hit, it transported over 10 billion gallons of untreated sewage into the estuary, which caused accelerated degradation of water quality and structural and basic changes to the structural function and the structure of the ecosystem in the estuary. One of these changes was zooplankton populations in the area decreased, and there was an increase in harmful algal bloom species populations, which changed the structure of the ecosystem and further degraded the water quality. Reflections and conclusions that we can draw from Hurricane Sandy and its many after effects is that storms like these and other natural disasters are devastating to not only our communities in our lives, but is also devastating to natural ecosystems, both their quality and their structure and function. And as an extension, this directly affects us because many of these ecosystems we rely on for our infrastructure, for our resources like food and materials. And so when these ecosystems change and are degraded, that directly affects us. And these complex effects and consequences, they don't just go away once the storm goes away. They persist long after the storm is gone. And how we prepare and how we plan for this is going to directly affect how fast we can recover from these. And our responses to these events are going to dictate how much damage subsequent natural disasters cause and how we react to them. Thank you for listening.